Nikola Tesla, and the Waldorf Astoria. The Waldorf Astoria was the tallest hotel in the world, a center for banquets, concerts, and conventions in the city, and the permanent or temporary residence of the wealthiest and most eminent citizens of the day. Residing there became a goal to which Tesla aspired. It would be one he would achieve before the end of the year, and one he would maintain for the next 2 decades. Built in 2 parts, the original Waldorf was completed by William Waldorf Astor in 1893, the Astoria by his cousin, John Jacob Astor, in late 1897. At first, Jack was reluctant to tear down his mother's home to erect a hotel, but after the Waldorf grossed $4.5 million in its first year, he changed his mind. Its opening marked the beginning of a new concept in living, extolling the essence of exclusiveness, cordiality, pomposity, and elegant grandiosity to the masses. The manager, George C. Bolt, was a Prussian immigrant from the island of Achem, situated near Denmark in the Baltic Sea. Mild-mannered, dignified, and unassuming, Bolt resembled a typical German professor with his close-cropped beard, which he kept fastidiously trimmed, and his pince-nez glasses on a black silk cord. Described also as a martinet and a man of mercurial moods, Bolt was a socialite, in certain ways, of the most superficial kind. "I would rather see Mrs. Stuyvesant Fish enjoying a cup of tea in an all but empty palm room," Boyd declared, "than a dozen lesser-known guests there feasting." The manager also adored mechanical contrivances, sprinkling the hotel with such modern conveniences as pneumatic tubes, electric boat carriage calls, flashing control panels on the elevators, and his network of hushed but authoritative buzzers. A few years later, the Waldorf would be the first hotel with a radio tower. No doubt, Tesla, himself an elitist, was attractive to Boyd. With his position of inventor extraordinaire well established, it is likely that the inventor was accepted in a distinct class above the manager. Once he moved in, Tesla may even have avoided paying rent in lieu of his connection with Astor, or he may have negotiated a favorable deal. With over 900 on staff, the acclaimed Oscar of the Waldorf as chef, and Bolt's capable wife overseeing the decor, there was no finer establishment. A regal fragrance wafted from every corner of the hotel, with exquisite porcelain, exotic flowers, and expensive furniture decorating the halls, dining rooms, and suites. This was the alley where the peacocks came to strut. At over 6 feet 2 inches and dressed in suede high tops, tails, cane, top hat, and ever-present white gloves, Nikola Tesla was one of the proudest and most renowned. The Spanish-American War dragged on through most of 1898, as Tesla continued to try to exploit his telautomaton for use as a naval weapon. He had offered his wireless transmitters to aid in the organizing of ship and troop movements, but was turned down by the Secretary of the Navy for fear, as Tesla reported a year later, that it might cause a calamity, as sparks are apt to fly anywhere in the neighborhood of such apparatus when it is at work. Tesla tried to guarantee that he had overcome these defects and limitations, but it was to no avail. Public demonstrations and photographs of lightning bolts spewing from his ingenuity worked to hinder any assurances he might give. Instead, during the conflict, the Navy utilized hot air balloons connected to ships by telegraph lines instead. Being up in one would make a man's hair turn white, since the balloon was an easy target, but soldiers had to obey orders, and that was all there was to it. Tesla contacted shipbuilder Mr. Nixon, designer of the Oregon, the Ballard Ocean liner he had fixed while working for Tom Edison in 1884, and also submarine builder John P. Holland. 2 years later, Holland would sell the Navy its first submersible. It would weigh a commanding 74 tons and become a quintessential fighting machine. But in 1898, he was still having difficulty negotiating a deal. The Navy Department was obliged to decline Holland's offer to go into Santiago Harbor and destroy the Spanish warships, as it smacked of privateering and was in violation of international law. And Tesla also invited military personnel to his laboratory, particularly U.S. Navy Rear Admiral Francis J. Higgins' son, chairman of the Lighthouse Board, to discuss the use of his wireless transmitters. But dealing with the government was anything but easy. During this period, in June 1898, Richmond Pearson Hobson rocketed to stardom, capturing the hearts of America through his heroic efforts in the war. A few months later, Hobson would become the key attraction of the Tesla-Johnson social net, and a decade after that, his fame so well established, he would become a presidential candidate. On June 4th, the New York Times reported that a bold American fighting frigate, the Merrimac, had made a dash into Santiago harbor under a lively cannonade of fire in attempts to attack the waiting Spanish armada. The ship was sunk, and an officer, an engineer, and 6 seamen were taken prisoners. The Times concluded, "Everybody is astounded at the audacity of the American vessel." The following day, it was revealed that enemy fire had not sunk the ship at all. Rather, it had been deliberately scuttled by Lieutenant Hobson for the purpose of locking in the harbor the entire Spanish fleet. This splendid stroke effectively removed the feared Admiral Cervera from the war. In a day, in an hour, the potent, all-pervading force of electricity flashed his fame over the round world. As Hobson was imprisoned in the dungeon of Morro Castle, he continued to make headlines as the world waited for the war to end, and his hoped for release ever. Catherine continued to spread her Irish charms, inviting the Serbian mystic to dinner so that she could be hypnotized by his presence. The very day of the sinking of the Merrimac, the inventor received the following provocative missive. June 6, 1898. Dear Mr. Tesla, I want very much to see you tomorrow evening, and will be really disappointed if you do not think my request worthy of your consideration. Robert is giving himself a birthday party, and he is going to have some of your Serbian songs sung. You must save this evening for us. After this date, I am going away to Washington for a visit, so if anybody cares to see Mrs. Philippoff, when you come tomorrow evening, we'll talk about the hand which is before me now, but which is doomed to seclusion. I cannot stand it. It is too strong, too virile. When I enter the room without thinking, it makes me start. LT is the only thing in it. But it is not satisfactory, for it does not give the proper idea of your hand, which is large and free. Like yourself, this seems sticky, short. You know what causes this. It is the shadows. You must try again and make your hand be as large and grand as it is. Faithfully yours, Katharina Johnson. January. Tesla had published a full-page photograph of his hand for Electrical Review in his attempts to dramatically display the improvements he had made in the efficiency of his vacuum lamps. Every line on the palm was visible, so effective was the illuminant, although, as Catherine points out, the shape is marred by an underlying shadow. The famous palmist Ciro was the rage of the day, having published analyses of the hands of such celebrities as Tom Edison, Sarah Bernhardt, and theosophist Annie Besant. Mark Twain commented, "Ciro has exposed my character to me with humiliating accuracy. I ought not to confess this accuracy, still I am moved to do it." It seems likely that Tesla's clever vanity had come upon a way to exploit his fluorescent tubes, and at the same time reveal in a veiled way the magnanimity of his being by exposing his hand to the world. Referring to a professional palmist, Tesla's hand supposedly reveals a flirtatious streak and hypersensitivity seen in the girdle of Venus. From the headline, incessant worries stemming from the past, a close association with his mother because it is tied to the heart line, an irrational streak and blind spot in his thinking due to chaining, an undulating course and foreshortening of the line, and all of this is counterbalanced by a remarkable fate line, which, rising like a firm oak tree, reveals stability, vision, creative aspiration, stubbornness, and an ability to withstand great stress and turmoil. The fate line is the strongest line in the hand. During these months, playful banter peaked between the inventor and the elusive Madame Philippoff. It seems she tried to get Tesla married. In February, Catherine wrote, "Another charming lady is to be here who does not believe that you are my friend, that he ever know you. I wish to convince her that you are on my list, and you shall sit beside her. Come and shed the radiance of your happy countenance upon us all, especially the Johnsons." In March, she demands that Tesla join them for lunch to bring solace to your friends, and a few days later invites him over again. A very charming girl is to be here who wants very much to meet Mr. Tesla. A real one, I assure you. Tesla decides to have everyone for dinner first and writes, "I shall send my private equipage to dine ... at the Waldorf, and I am getting up the appetite for the occasion." Tesla's celibacy has always been a question mark. It seems probable that he and Catherine had engaged in a sticky liaison a few years earlier, but at this stage, due in part to Catherine's arrangements, Tesla had become active with other women, and Catherine had enjoyed his pleasures vicariously. 3 ladies who interested him were Mrs. Winslow, Miss Amasia Kussner, and Miss Marguerite Marrington. The first, alas, was married to the second. Tesla wanted to display his inventions at his laboratory. There is another reason why she should come, but that is difficult to say. Well, I dare not want to say anything disparaging of a lady, For yet another Johnson blowout, Tesla wrote, "Concerning the third lady, I'd sooner be glad to rely on your choice and only remember to suggest Miss Merrington if she would come. You know I would be her victim before dinner. But after that, I think I could hold my own, for she does not drink claret." And a few months later, March 9, 1899, "My dear Mrs. Johnson, I shall be glad to have any of your friends come, but we must have one lady for each gentleman, else you must dine without me. Agnes must come by all means, and wouldn't you invite Miss Merrington? She is such a wonderfully clever woman. I would say wise had she but married. Really, I would like to have her with us. Sincerely, Nicholas I.F. Houston Saint, born in England." Marguerite Merrington was raised in a convent in Buffalo before she studied the piano and became a teacher at her alma mater, Normal College. Resigning to move to New York City to follow her passion of dramatic author, Miss Merrington first made headlines in 1891 with her well-received romantic play Letterbleh. This success was followed 2 years later when she won a $500 prize from the National Conservatory of Music for her libretto Daphne, which was reviewed by, among others, Antonin Duvautour. Tall, graceful and charming, the regal Miss Merrington was a frequent dinner guest at the Johnson home. An integral part of the Gramercy Park set, Miss Merrington accompanied the young Owen Johnson to Mark Twain's birthday party in 1905 and maintained her creative spark throughout her life, writing a book on General Custer and his wife in 1950, the year before she died, unmarried, at the age of 91. In August 1898, John Jacob Astor returned from the battlegrounds, but it was not until December that Tesla met with Astor at his home. While Jack was considered by many to be cold-hearted, humorless, weak-minded, and almost completely absent of personality, his wife, Aya, was seen as the most beautiful woman in America. Tesla was particularly taken by Lady Astor's loveliness, and it seems that she was enthralled by the inventor's experiments. The three dined together on occasion at Delmonico's or the Waldorf, and when Tesla arrived at the Astor residence, he often brought along a bouquet of flowers. But although Aya sparkled at every lighted candle, and Jack followed her about like a bedraggled and slightly bad-tempered spaniel, all was not well with the marriage, where Astor was able to leave his exquisite wife for months on end. Touring the high seas for adventure and the noble cause, she retreated by entertaining as thus, even though Aya was on his side, the inventor was uncertain of his standing. "My dear Astor," Tesla began, "I would like to explain why I could not go down to Cuba with you." "I understand," Astor replied. "During the gunfire. Perhaps that is when it dawned on me. I realized that your life was too precious to risk on such a trip. I see, however, from recent reports that you have been attacked after all, but it has been by reporters instead. I'm glad," Tesla quipped, "that I am living in a place in which, though they can roast me in the papers, they cannot burn me at their stake." Tesla thereupon called a meeting with Astor and two of his cronies, Mr. Clarence Mackay and Mr. Darius Ogden Mills, so that he could display his continuing progress with his oscillators and fluorescent lights, as well as show them patent applications, articles which had appeared in the technical journals, and reports on tests performed by the Royal Society in London and the Röntgen Society in Germany. "Let me read you the following dispatch from Sir William Crookes," Tesla said. "Congratulations. The performance of your machine is marvelous." And Tesla presented another report which hailed his oscillator as one of the most significant of the age. "You will see how many enterprises can be built up on that novel principle, Colonel. It is for Arison that I am often and violently attacked, because my inventions threaten a number of established industries. My telautomaton, for instance, opens up a new art which will sooner or later render large guns entirely useless, and will make impossible the building of large battleships, and will, as I have stated in my patent long before the Tsar's manifesto, compel the nations to come to an understanding for the maintenance of peace." "You are taking too many leaps for me," Astor said, causing the others to reconsider as well. "Let us stick to oscillators and cold lights. Let me see some success in the marketplace with these two enterprises, before you go of saving the world with an invention of an entirely different order, and then I will commit more than my good wishes. Stop in again when you have a sound proposal or call me on the telephone." Tesla waited until the new year and then hit the Colonel with a direct assault. "My dear Astor," Tesla said, "it has always been my firm belief that you take a genuine, friendly interest in myself personally as well as in my labors now I ask you frankly, when I have a friend like J.J. a prince among wealthy men, a patriot ready to risk his life for his country, a man who means every word he says, who puts such a value on my labors and who offers repeatedly to back me up, have I not a foundation for believing that he would stand by me when, after several years of hard work, he finally brought to commercial perfection some important inventions which, even at the most conservative estimate, must be valued at several $1 million, informing Astor that George Westinghouse had given him $500,000 for the AC polyphase system and that Edward Dean Adams had invested $100,000 to become a partner in his later endeavors when he had 14 new US and as many foreign patents. Tesla remarked that there was a powerful clique which still now oppose him, and it is chiefly for this reason that I and a few friends, like yourself, to give me at this moment their valuable financial and moral support. Having placed faith in Astor's words, Tesla reveals that he had sold of securities to buy back control of his company, although Mr. Adams still has a minority interest. Having stated that his laboratory in the past has paid $1,500 for every $100 invested, on the average, the inventor proclaims, I am fully confident that the property which I have now in my hands will pay much better than this. I now produce a light superior by far to that of the incandescent lamp with 1/3 of the expenditure of energy, and as my lamps will last forever, the cost of maintenance will be minute. The cost of copper, which in the old system is a most important item, is in mine reduced to a mere trifle, for I can run on a wire sufficient for one incandescent lamp more than 1,000 of my own lamps, giving fully 5,000 times as much light. Let me ask you, Colonel, how much is this alone worth when you consider that there are hundreds of millions of dollars invested today in electric light in the various chief countries in which have patented my inventions in this field? Sooner or later, Tesla continues, my system will be purchased either by the Whitney Syndicate, G or Westinghouse, for otherwise they will be driven out of the market. The inventor closed. Then consider my oscillators and my system of transmitting power without wires, my method of directing the movement of bodies at a distance by wireless telegraphy, the manufactures of fertilizers and nitric acid from the air, the production of ozone and many other important lines of manufacture as, for instance, cheap refrigeration and cheap manufacture of liquid air, etc. And you will see that, putting a fair estimate on all, I cannot offer to sell any considerable amount of my property for less than $1,000 a share. I am perfectly sure that I will be able to command that price as soon as some of my inventions are on the market. Telling Astor that he had contracts pending with the Creusot Works in France, the Helios Company in Germany, Gantz and Company in Austria and other firms, Tesla requested an investment of $100,000. If you do not take that much interest, you will put me at a great disadvantage. Should Astor come in, other Astor associates, such as Mr. Mackay and Darius Ogden Mills, would do the same. If Tesla wrote, after 6 months you should have any reason to be dissatisfied, it will be my first duty to satisfy you. Astor stressed interest in seeing Tesla exploit his fluorescent lights, and the inventor agreed. On January 10, 1899, papers were signed whereby Astor gave Tesla $100,000 for 500 shares of the Tesla Electric Company. In return, Astor was elected director of the board. At the same time, Tesla moved into the Waldorf Astoria. Tesla also received $10,000 from the dry goods manufacturer Simpson & Crawford, and he may also have received funds from Mr. Mills or Mr. Mackay. The old Tesla company, with William Rankin and Edward D. Adams, was, for all intents and purposes, dissolved, along with his relationship with Alfred Brown and Charles Peck, although all of these individuals may have in one way or another been involved in the new enterprise. The first letter on Waldorf stationery written to the Johnsons is dated November 3, 1898. It is one of the rare letters in which Tesla refers to Mrs. Johnson as "My dear Kate." Tesla was about to hook a big fish, perhaps the wealthiest fish on the planet, and his sense of self-importance escalated accordingly. In haughty fanfare, the Serbian aristocrat separated his exalted ilk from other social tribalites, plebeians, drummers, grocerymen, and Jews. Anti-Semitic references are rare in the Tesla correspondence, but no doubt he was anti-Semitic, at least in the social sense, that is, as a common reflection of the times. Anti-Semitism against ethnic ghetto dwellers, such as those newly arrived in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and New York's Lower East Side, was common among the upper classes, Even though the Rothschilds, Auguste Belmont, Jacob Schiff, and Bernard Baruch were well respected and known to be Jewish. It is, however, clear evidence of one of Tesla's prejudices. The letter also refers to Tesla's wish to meet Lieutenant Hobson, whose Cuban exploits had been featured in the Century. The interest in Hobson was at a fever heat at our offices, Johnson recalled, and the estimates of the sale of his proposed book ran into the 100,000s. Unfortunately, shortly after his account appeared, a scandalous event occurred which was egged on by the sensational press, and the idea for the book fell flat. The incident had to do with Hobson's handsome appearance and the inability of women to refrain from kissing him when he came into their midst. "I would have cut off my right arm rather than to offend one of those ladies," Hobson declared, concluding, "The kissing episodes, what little there was to them, were entirely beyond my control, and my conscience is clear." The dashing lieutenant was well liked by Tesla and the Johnsons, and his entry into their circle added a wonderful spark to their lives. He would join a group that included at this time the Gilders, Miss Kushner, Miss Merrington, Mrs. Winslow, Mrs. Robinson, Mrs. Dodge, Rudyard Kipling, and John New. Playful jealousies became evident as Tesla and the Johnsons vied for the war hero's attention, Tesla daring even to tender to Hobson own lady with whom the inventor may have had intimate relations. "Remember, Luca," Tesla teased, "Hobson does not belong to the Johnsons exclusively. I shall avenge myself on Emmy. Fill a path by introducing him to Emmy, Kushner, and somebody will be forgotten." Tesla spent many delightful hours with Hobson, inviting him to the laboratory, to dinner, and out on the town. "He is a fine fellow," the inventor concluded. Their friendship would last. Hobson, 28, a Southerner, was a striking presence in his uniform, with deep-set, penetrating eyes, hair swept back, a firm, prominent chin, and a handlebar moustache. A graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy in 1889, he had spent 3 years in Paris studying at a maritime college and had worked for the Office of Naval Intelligence. Gifted with arcing mind, Hobson had worked for the Secretary of the Navy during the China-Japan War. His family on both sides included lawyers, judges, a governor, and a general. He was a ready-made hero, and he was a social catch of the first order. All the pieces of Tesla's puzzle were now in place. He had obtained fundamental patents on wireless communication and remote control. He had calculated the type of energy he needed in order to disturb the electrical conditions of the planet. He had obtained a sizable sum of working capital from one of the wealthiest men in the world. He had begun serious negotiations with the US Navy. And as a social triumph, he had moved into the Waldorf Astoria. The budding entrepreneur settled upon a plan for marketing his oscillators and cold lamps well. They could wait for now, and then Tesla took the next bold step. He would test his wireless theories on a grand scale. The laboratory at Houston Street was simply too small and vulnerable to fires and potential spies. With few people where, Tesla had scouted the country to seek out potential sites for his new experimental station. George Scherf, his capable secretary, tried to get Tesla to reconsider, to stay in New York and do something tangible, something that would pay an immediate return, but he was talking to a deaf ear. Destiny was urging Tesla westward. End of Nikola Tesla and the Waldorf Astoria. Thank you for watching.